Trump appointed federal judge may have committed obstruction of justice by ruling in favor of Donald Trump as it relates to the special master that will now oversee what documents are in and what documents are out. Let me give you background to this. Let's put up the picture of the federal judge, give some background to who she is. This is Aileen Mercedes Cannon. Judge Cannon is a United States District Judge for the Southern District of Florida. She was nominated by Donald Trump and confirmed by the United States Senate in 2020. So this particular US District Judge cleared the way for a third-party attorney to review all seized materials, not just documents covered by the attorney-client privilege, the circumstance in which special masters are usually used, but also for potential executive privilege concerns, a move that the Justice Department says would be unprecedented. Let me explain why this would be an unprecedented move here. A special master in cases like this is pretty routine. It's not abnormal to have a special master, especially when there has been an admission from both sides that confidential information between the attorney and the client may have been part of what was seized. The special master comes in and says, all right, this is clearly attorney-client privilege. This is clearly not, and you put that on the other side. Here's the reality. If an attorney engaged in illegal conversation, meaning they have become part of the conspiracy, that is not protected under the federal rules of evidence nor the bar as privileged conversation. Now, here's the other part that's unbelievable. This Trump-backed judge has literally said, basically, that the special master can also determine dynamics related to executive privilege, meaning conversations between the president and advisors, etc., could be protected. The reason why that's unprecedented is because it is unsettled law. This is not settled as far as the reach of the presidential privilege responsibility. You see, there's a school of thought that says the current president is the one who can actually protect, or the current president is the one who can benefit from this thing known as executive privilege, not a former president. Remember, where was executive privilege when Nixon was literally being recorded? The reason why it did not protect Nixon is because Nixon was engaged in an illegal conversation, according to the narrative of his political opponents, some political allies, and also the prosecutors. There's more. Here are some key takeaways from this entire ruling. Here's what happens next. A significant win for Trump, many are calling it. The primary takeaway is simple. The ruling is a major legal win for Trump, according to legal analysts. Trump filed a lawsuit seeking a special master to review the materials that the FBI seized last month. And now, one will be appointed with the potential to decide that certain materials are out of bounds to the FBI's investigation. Remember, this is the investigation. We're not talking about rules allowed in the courtroom. We're talking about the investigation. So Judge Cannon bought into the skepticism of Trump's lawyers when they raised the issue about the search at the Florida resort. As they questioned whether investigators could be trusted to properly filter through the thousands of documents that were seized, the judge rejected the Justice Department's assurances that its internal filter team had already sorted out materials that could be subject to attorney-client privileges. Now remember, they've already gone through the material. You have to understand this. This is not about what the federal government is able to review. They've already reviewed it. They've admitted to it. They say, listen, we've already done this part. We have filtered out what is actually protected and what is not. So this is not about the knowledge of what the federal government is aware of. This is about what can be used as an investigative standard and what can ultimately be introduced in the court of law. Is it not ironic that the same individual who believes he can steal classified information from the United States government to deem them to be non-confidential because he stole them, He's the same person literally advocating to make sure that his conversations are classified in a sense and remain confidential, even though his actions are contrary to that as it relates to classified government material. There's more. Ultimately, the special master may merely lead to a delay in the federal investigation into Trump's taken from Mar-A-Lago, but it now introduces a new layer of uncertainty into the entire investigation. The former president did not get absolutely everything he asked for. The judge did not rule that any material seized from his home should be returned to him, for instance. And here's another dynamic that is fascinating to me. Trump immediately came out and said, hey, they stole my passports. They need to return them. Remember that? He had a whole press release about it. Went on his Truth Social to provide context to them stealing his passport, as he put it. Well, guess what he did when he said that? He identified himself as the custodial owner of those papers. You see, many times the federal government, when they seize documents, they will look for what's called identifying marks to prove who was the custodian of the records. By Donald Trump admitting that he knew his passports were in the same location as these classified documents, he has nailed himself as the custodial owner of classified, illegal, and stolen material. There's more. Both sides were told to file a joint filing by Friday, spelling out their answers to these questions based on how the case has progressed so far. It seems unlikely that the two sides will agree on much. They will both be able to put in writing their ideas on how they want this to move forward. It's going to be interesting to see. Plans to review for executive privilege. Trump had said that a special master review needed to go beyond documents covered by the attorney-client privilege, and that materials covered through the executive privilege should be filtered out as well. So this was his request. You see, executive privilege refers to private communications presidents have with their advisors and other types of internal communications within the executive branch that are withheld from public release. While disputes over the privilege have come in congressional investigations, the reaches of executive privilege, particularly when a former president is arguing it, should apply when a current president is declining to assert it, is unsettled law. So let's go to the American Enterprise Institute. They noted that Judge Cannon should not have even taken the case in the first place. Said, and I quote, "It was in the hands of the magistrate judge. She was picked by Trump's lawyers solely because she was a Trumpist in a jurisdiction nowhere near Mar-a-Lago. She has in effect engaged herself in obstruction of justice, according to this organization." Steve Vladeck, who serves as the Charles Allen Wright Chair in federal courts at the University of Texas Law School, called the ruling preposterous. He highlighted, and I quote, "The part where it blocks the government from continuing to use materials already in its possession, at the very least, the last ruling creates an immediately appealable injunctive-like order, which the DOJ can now take to the 11th Circuit. They are likely to get a favorable review based on the 11th Circuit historical context." Well, fascinating. They judge shopped, which is really frowned upon, but they were allowed to do it. Attorney at law, what are your thoughts on this? And do the other legal experts, are they onto something that this judge may have engaged in obstruction?
So it'd be difficult ever to prove anything about obstruction against a judge in particular, but what we do know is that the order that this judge issued, Aileen Cannon, that it's absolute nonsense. It doesn't follow legal precedent at all. It completely and totally strays from what the law is. A lot of it is convoluted, and it is not at all reflective of what this judge can do. I believe she worked at Gibson Dunn, which is one of the most high-profile law firms in the country, as well as being a clerk for an 8th Circuit US Court of Appeals judge. She knows how to analyze the law and how to apply it. Yet she's opted to do something that completely and totally bastardizes the law and doesn't comport with it at all. It really says to us that she is engaging in a dereliction of duty. At the same time, the thought of actually prosecuting a judge for obstruction would be very difficult unless you had some kind of smoking gun, an email or something that said, I'm going to rule in a way that favors Trump, regardless of what the law and the facts hold. And it's so incredibly disheartening because Cannon initially came into the situation seeming somewhat objective, demanding that Trump's team explain why they came to her as opposed to Reinhart in the court that they should have gone to. And so she actually seemed like she wanted to uphold the law, but some things definitely changed since that point in time. And the problem is that we have a justice system that does allow people to be above the law because nothing is happening that would stop that from going on right now. And it's extremely disheartening, especially since going to the 11th Circuit means you're gonna have 6 Trump appointed judges up there on that Court of Appeals that will be looking over this order.
Yeah, well said. All right, we're gonna continue to follow it obviously to the ultimate conclusion.